Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm Annette Musso, and I'm the mother to a 14-year-old boy with autism named Matteo. If you haven't seen any of my videos before, I'll just give you a brief history. Matteo was a nonverbal, silent, autistic boy up until about the age of 12, when we discovered that he was able to use a letterboard to communicate his deep thoughts through the rapid prompting method. So over the past 2.5 years, we've been able to really get to know him, and the most amazing part of this is that I get to hear from him about the challenges he faces being autistic. I will say that I'm going to call him autistic and say he's an autistic kid or an autistic teen, because that's how he refers to himself, as opposed to a person with autism. However you feel about either of those ways to describe them, I'm just telling you why I'm using the word autistic for describing my son. So I wanted to make this video because over the past 6 months, we have been struggling around here with, I'm going to say it, the P word, puberty. Yes. Anyone out there doing the same thing? It is so tough. It's tough enough anyway. I would imagine. I've never raised a neurotypical child, but I hear it's tough enough anyway, and have heard it from my friends as the years have gone on. But I think when you add autism or OCD into the mix, my guess is it can be a little tougher than it is for most of the population. So my son has always been this sweet, pretty calm, very cooperative, just chill kind of guy. He doesn't have ADD, he's not running around all the time. He doesn't have to be moving all the time anymore. He's just a joy to be around, and really my best friend and my husband's best friend. But recently things have changed. And this sweet little boy is still there, but then there's also this raging hormonal teenager that has picked up residence in our house as well. And he kind of overtakes my son once in a while, to the point where I don't recognize my own child anymore. So maybe some of you can relate to this, and maybe that's why you zoomed into this video. It was getting so rough that I had to quit teaching other autistic kids, really to focus on the needs of my own child. And I am so glad I did. It just had to be done. As much as I loved working with the other kids, there will be a time that I go back to do that. But for now, I chose to meet my son's needs and the needs of our family first. And it's changed so much in 2 weeks. I can't even tell you. Well, I'll try to tell you. So what's been happening, as I mentioned, is that we'll be going along with our life, and Matteo is kind of hanging on my body a lot more. And we've always been close. We've held hands a lot and all this stuff. And he says, "Mom, hanging on to you grounds me." And I believe that is really true. And it was cute when he was younger, and now he's getting older. He's almost 6 feet tall. Our favorite way to walk is like we're going to prom. He puts his arm around my shoulders, and he takes my arm and puts it around the back of his waist, and we walk into Safeway that way. But now it's become a little more aggressive. So I'm not going to go into explicit details about what goes on, but suffice it to say that he grabs a hold of my body when he needs to, period. He's writing a book about this right now, and in it he lists the 3 in descending order of my tolerance level, and that is touching my shoulder, touching my neck, and touching mom's tummy skin. Now, you'll notice the pillow covering up the tummy skin. So, I don't like the tummy skin. Never had the tummy skin, but I do now. And I guess I'm self-conscious about it, and guess who knows it? And guess who's going to pick on that the most? And I really have learned that, I mean, we all say our kids are our teachers, right? Well, he is. He's like a professor. And he's going to pound this information into me until I get it. And the way he's going to do it is by reacting when I don't get it. Yikes, right? So I was sensitive about my stomach. And I'll tell you, we were at a camp, and I could tell his energy was building. It was pretty tough to tolerate the last class of the camp. And it was a Boy Scout camp. And it's pretty intense. They learn a lot. But it's fun too, right? But we're leaving the class, and he puts his arm around me and he squishes my stomach really hard. And it hurt. It hurt a lot. And I just kind of like, dude, stop. Let go of my body. I need my space, you know? Wow, my energy changed. And it was bad. Now, I'm not supposed to label things as good or bad, but it was bad. Excuse my French. I like to actually just reflect on what happened without putting a judgment to it. So I'm catching myself as I film this. Obviously I'm not perfect yet at this. But it was a really tough one. And the meltdown lasted a good hour. And by the end, I was a basket case. I was crying. I was sobbing. A lot of people were around. It was rough. And it began, I would say, a desperate search for some answers and some different things to try to get us through this. So my husband and I have been scouring the internet, trying to read everything we can get our hands on, get a hold of, and there's not too much. There's a lot describing meltdowns, and there's a lot about comparing what's a meltdown to what's a tantrum, and that's fine, and there's tons of videos if you want to Google that. I won't spend much time on it. But there's not too much about, hey, what do you do in the peak of the meltdown? How do you all survive it? Especially when the kids are getting bigger, right? They're strong. It's not all moms have the God-given girth that I have. So now I'm a little thankful for the tummy skin right now, because it makes me a little safer. And anyway, I know why I have it, so that's good. So I wanted to make this video, and I have Matteo's permission to talk about this, to help maybe some of you that are looking for the same thing. I know a lot of us are going through it, and I guess my main point is that there's book smarts, which is great. It's science, it's research, it's psychological, it's physiological. We know all that stuff. But then there's the actual experience of the child, especially if they're nonverbal. That, how do we know? How do we know that they're following along what the book says? How do we know that's what's going on? We don't. We could be completely wrong. We could be assuming because that's what somebody told us or somebody wrote, but it's not really their experience. So my son can now explain what's going on with him, and I am so grateful. Since not everybody has that with their nonverbal children, I wanted to make this video and just kind of share a bit about what we're doing that's worked in the past 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Huge shift. Number one, cut down on the demands in your child's life during this struggled with puberty, whether it's education, whether it's so many therapies, whether it's keeping every minute of their life filled with some activity, whether it's 4 hours of video games or on the computer that they're doing per day. We want to cut that back as well, because that, especially when the hormones are raging, it's detrimental. It's detrimental to the brain. Just think about it. Think about cutting back what's going on with that in your home with your autistic kids. But once I cut back on the demand, not only from Matteo, but from myself, because I was still teaching, and I was busy every single minute of the day till 8 o'clock at night, I was tired, and I was getting overwhelmed. And that's my pattern, is when I have some free time, I fill it, and pretty soon, if I'm not careful, I'm back to where I was before I backed it off and chilled out. So at least I know, right? Admitting it is the first step. So cut back on the demand, number one. Number two is realize that they don't plan to do this. They don't know what the heck's going on in their body unless we've taken the time to sit down and talk to them about it. So that's my next question. Have you had the talk with your autistic child, verbal or not? I may not have thought, before Matteo was able to communicate, I mean, honestly, I may not have thought to have the talk with him, because I didn't know if he understood everything, especially big physiological concepts. We always talk to him in more simple language, and they'll understand it, I promise you, they will. So number two. Number three is to understand that whatever it is they're doing during the peak of this emotional outburst, the peak of this meltdown, is unintended. It's not intended. If they're hurting you, they don't mean to be doing that. If they're verbal and they're just letting the swear words roll off their tongue, they don't mean to be doing that. If they're offensive in any way, they don't mean to be doing that. If they're self-injurious, they don't need to be doing that either. Nothing is intentional, and if they could stop it, they would. That is the biggest thing my son was writing the other day for his book, and he said the scariest part for him about coming out of a meltdown is the reaction and judgment of those around him. The biggest fear and hardest part about coming out of a meltdown is the judgment from those who witnessed it. I was crying when he told me that. To be afraid of how I'm going to judge him as this bad kid or this violent kid. He's not a violent kid. And he's certainly not a bad kid. He's a great kid. So if we can honestly know this, I'm sure you all tell yourself that, but honestly feel it and know it in your gut and your heart, because that's what they read. They don't listen to your words. They read your true inner feelings about everything. That's very helpful. Number 4. Whatever I've watched on the internet, like there's some things that describe the stages, which is great to know, of a meltdown. Some describe, as I said before, what's a meltdown, what's a tantrum, and you can handle those things differently. A lot of the advice that I've read is put them in a safe place where they can have their meltdown and let them be alone for as long as it takes. It might take 10 minutes, it might take an hour, it might take 2 hours. Make sure they're in a safe place and just let them calm themselves. That's fine, it might work for some people. I've taken a different approach with it because it's really, really hard, A, to get him in a room alone, and B, to watch it. And so I choose to be an active participant in a way that is uninvasive to him. And by that, I mean my mind, my heart. You've got to find this Zen place. It's really, really hard. But if we focus on step 3, knowing they don't want to be doing any of this, and if they stop it, if they could stop it, they would, helps with step 4, which is finding this place of peace where you can be their rock, and you can be the entity that helps ground them and helps them come back. Matteo has described that it's like he leaves his body and watches this whole scenario and wonders what this crazy person is doing all this stuff for. And then when he comes back, you can just see the difference. It's this sighing, it's this reflective, soulful look that he gets. His body relaxes, and then he spells on the letterboard, "I'm so sorry, Mom." And it breaks my heart. Right? So I don't choose to leave him to his own devices. What I found that works is to tell him, and what he has shared with me works, "You are safe." Say, "You are safe. You are safe. You are safe." Because he's spinning around, he doesn't feel very safe. When you're out of control like that, you do not feel safe. So, you are safe. You are safe. Okay? Remind them who you are. I'm your mom. I'm your mom. I'm your mom. You are safe. I'm your dad. You are safe. I am right here. You are safe. Okay? Huge difference. You are safe. And know that. Know that you're keeping them safe. You are a huge part in this equation. You're the biggest part in this equation. I hate to tell you. But I was told that yesterday, so I thought I'd share. Here's exactly what I was told. My son is writing, as I said, so here it is. "Mom's tolerance for my invasive need to connect with her by physical touch of some sort can play the biggest role in the severity of the storm. Tidal wave versus lapping waves upon the shore. I don't mean to put the responsibility of or blame for my emotional upheavals on Mom, but unfortunately, her internal reactions do matter to me. You may remember me saying in my other book that you can't hide internal reactions from us or fake that something we do doesn't bother you. We can only sense the truth from you. You put out a vibe, so to speak, with each emotional reaction. Here's where you get tossed back into the proverbial classroom you may or may not have signed up for and get to learn from your autistic professor. So, how the heck do we deal with this, right? So I could be really stressed and go, oh great, this is my responsibility, I'm only human, I can only do so much when we're in the midst of this together. But I really don't have a choice. I got to figure it out. So whatever you need to do, if you need to learn how to meditate, that's actually what I did, and it's so helpful. You've got to give yourself that time and allot it in your day, and it's the biggest gift you can give yourself and your child. But if that's not it, and you need to work out every day, or you need to do whatever it is you do to center yourself, go have some girl time, have some guy time, go play golf, do whatever you need to do. But come back centered and ready to parent this beautiful being that you're raising. And it's challenging, it can be challenging, but we have to find this Zen place because it makes all the difference in the world. It will affect the length of the meltdown, I've discovered. It will affect the severity of the meltdown. And that which leads up to it can be squished. We don't even have to have a meltdown. What if we could prevent the meltdown by having our eyes so wide open to recognizing the signs before it happens and acting? So what I mean by that is when you see the sign, Matteo talks about Old Faithful, and we have to wait. We're watching for Old Faithful at Yellowstone Park, and it would spew little things like a tease, and then it didn't erupt, and we were waiting longer, and it spewed a little. Oh, there it comes! No, right? You get warnings that something bigger is coming. He also says the water in a teapot doesn't go from cold to boiling instantly, even with the best of stoves, right? There is that warm up and ramp up period. So when we notice it, if you can change the situation, if you know what's causing it, and it can act quickly and change the situation, go for it. But we can't go, oh no, it's happening, oh no, and fear it. We have to be able to pull back and go, I got this. I know what to do. I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to choose to know that everything is going to be okay. And I'm going to choose to know that I am now empowered to help him through this. I know to tell him he's safe. I'm going to try that, see if it affects my son. I know to remind him who I am. I'm going to try that because maybe he doesn't see me as me. My son told me that. He doesn't see me as mom when he's in this state. It's just I'm someone who wants to control him. And he has to assert energy back to show that he can be in control. And that's the hormones, that's not him. So choose to know that in your heart and go there. And that was actually number 5, was realize that we have a part in all of this. And I don't say that to put pressure on you and to put blame, believe me, because I'm one of you. I'm saying that to empower you, because how beautiful is that? We don't have to isolate them and say, deal with this, and when you're fine, come back. We don't have to do it. We can, and that's your choice too. Whatever you want to do is fine. But if that's too hard on you and in your gut, and your intuition is saying there's got to be something else, then maybe try this and see what happens. I'm not trying to tell you how to do things in your home. I'm just giving suggestions based on my journey, and the information that Matteo is able to share with me, that he wants the world to know for the benefit of his autistic colleagues, as he calls them. So I hope this helps. The top 5 things to know to make it through the puberty meltdown, because they're not always about sensory overload. And that's another thing that's written so much. We have meltdowns because of sensory overload. Yes, when they're younger, absolutely. But that is not what it's about right now in my house. We could be sitting right here with nothing changing sensory-wise. And it could start. So it's not just about sensory overload anymore once they start hitting their teens. So anyway, I hope this helped, and I wish you the best. Maybe we'll talk some more about this. Feel free to leave a comment, or if I can help you in any way, let me know. And if you have any comments for me, bring it on. I would appreciate it. We need more out here in the world, more resources for parents, and more ideas to try. Right? We're all having our experiences. We're all living this. There's not one book written that's going to get us all through this. There just isn't, because the experiences are so different. So this is just something for you to try, and I hope it helps. And I referred to Matteo's book earlier. I said he's writing his 2nd book. If you want to find out more about his journey and our journey together, you can find it on Amazon. And it's also on the link on his website. It's called Handbook of Us, Understanding and Accepting People with Autism. And Matteo's website is matteomusso.com. Thanks so much, and have a beautiful day. Oh, okay. Ready? You ready?